Welcome to the next Mad TV series, all things Tenere 700. Imagine if you put in one room a bunch of people who love and live motorcycle adventure. Experts in their respective fields of engineering, mechanics, suspension and accessory development, who all love the Yamaha Tenere 700 and recognise its potential to be the iconic adventure bike for the 2020s. In this series, I have the great privilege of learning from this vast pool of knowledge and then applying what I've learnt to make my Tenere 700 the best it can be for me. In this first episode, we head to Unifilter headquarters and speak with the General Manager Miles Gooch to pick up some tips, tricks and the latest development in air filters for the Tenere 700. But before I head off, I've got to stop and tie down that giant loop Tillamook dry bag flapping about on the rear of my bike.
So, we all know how important air filtration is on any dirt bike, let alone the big adventure bikes with big motors, big air induction, and of course Australians got really specific fine dust conditions, fine particles that give a lot of standard fitment paper filter elements that do come on adventure bikes a lot of grief, a lot of trouble. Yamaha Australia, they've worked on an arrangement with Unifilter Australia to fit oil foamed filter elements to all the Tenere 700s that come into Australia and New Zealand. And today we're visiting Unifilter HQ up on the central coast of New South Wales, meeting the head honcho, Miles Gooch, and we're going to have a look at the airbox today after a couple of dusty rides, and then also investigate creating a pre-filter on the snorkel of the standard airbox just to give another layer of protection against the air particles and dust and dirt. So we're going to hand it over to Miles. He'll work a little magic inside the airbox of Captain Tragic's Tenere 700. Miles, jump in mate, do your thing. So the design of the airbox, very similar to the 660 Tenere. 4 screws on top of the airbox, snorkel points up out of the lid of the airbox, 4 screws out, and then that bang gives you access straight into the air filter element. A lot better, Miles, than a lot of other big bore adventure bikes, especially from Europe.
Yeah, a lot easier to get to.
Yep.
Straight off the seat, straight into the air filter, instead of taking the tank off and trying to find your way through the filter.
Yeah. So does it actually touch the bottom of the box?
It does touch on the bottom box. It's just.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It shouldn't really, should it? Or
being as a very narrow, very shallow box,
yep.
Yeah, if you reduce to any height, you lose the surface area on the side.
Yeah.
So
gotcha.
there's no problem. The original filter's got a hard plastic base, so it doesn't breathe through it anyhow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
right.
You're still breathing through a little bit of it. It does touch on there.
Yeah.
So the original filter breathes inside to out rather than outside to in, like a standard, genuine filter fitted to most bikes, or cars for that matter. So yeah, filter does get dirty on the inside. With the filter being an inside out breather, you don't want to reduce the size of the snorkel on the inside too much. We'd probably recommend cutting about 15 to 20 mil off, just to allow the dust to spread a little bit better throughout the filter. You don't want to remove the snorkel altogether. It will upset the tune of the bike. They are generally a tune length intake, and if you start messing around with that, you'll probably find the bike does run not the way it should. About 12 to 15 millimeters off the bottom of the tube. You don't want to be cutting it right up here. Probably just cut it just around about there, and that'll just allow the dust to spread a little bit better, rather than building up at the bottom of the airbox. With working with Yamaha on this filter, we have suggested to only do that, don't to cut it all the way back. So yeah, our recommendation is just take 15 mil off, and that'll do the job. The only other thing we do recommend to do is actually put a bead of grease around the sealing edge of the filter. Being rubber on plastic can go out of shape, so if you put a bit of grease around the edge of the filter, it does take up that little slack. If the airbox goes out of shape, this will stop that from happening.
So Miles, you're the king of air filters in Australia, right? Unifilter. Everyone wants to know, what's the foolproof method to get the right amount of oil into the element when you're re-oiling the filter after cleaning it?
First of all, we recommend using a mineral-based oil. and not a synthetic. Don't use a spray-on oil or one that comes in a metal can that go on like water and become tacky. You want to use an oil that's already thick in consistency before you put it on. The best way to do it is, you can never use too much oil. Cover the filter totally in oil, whether it's in an ice cream container, in a plastic bag, and you massage it through. We put a fair bit on, massage it all the way through, squeeze as much out by hand as possible, and then wrap the filter up in absorbent towel or a cloth for half an hour to draw any excess out. Don't be afraid to put a little bit extra in there. It's better to have too much than not enough.
Yeah, but I think the words you just used then, squeeze out as much as you can.
Yeah,
I think a lot of us get nervous that we're squeezing too much out.
You'll never squeeze too much out.
Right, yeah.
If you use the right type of oil, you'll never squeeze too much
Understood.
out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so tell me about mineral oil that you referenced there before when it comes to oiling filter elements.
Especially in Australia, with Australian dust being so fine, if you use a synthetic oil or an alcohol-based oil, as they get dirty, the oil actually dries out. If you use a mineral-based oil, the oil will soak into the dirt, continue to work, it won't dry out. You'll never dry a mineral-based oil out. So if you see a filter and it starts to get like a dry scab on the outside of it, generally the whole filter's dried out, so right through the foam. So that's where you can draw dust through the dry section of the filter. Right. Whereas a mineral-based oil, the dirt will go like a mud, look like mud on the outside.
Yeah,
so
we've all seen that.
That means it's still tacky and it's still working.
Still doing the job.
Yeah.
Yep.
If it's dry, it's no longer doing the job.
Yep, understood. Right.
It sits down into that.
Yeah, sits into that groove.
Yeah, so we make ours be a nice firm fit onto that, so there's no movement in the filter.
But still put a lick of grease.
Sure, it doesn't matter. Even with the original one, you should still
do that
because plastic always goes out of shape.
Yep.
Yeah. People think it when the plastic's cold, plastic will always go back to shape, but as it gets hot, it expands and contracts. So while you're riding, things getting hotter and expanding and expands.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And then when you stop, it contracts back to shape. But it's when you're riding that you do the damage.
Yes, yeah, understood.
Same with cars. You look at many cars do the same thing.
Right. Okay. Yeah. All right, and then so what did you also want to achieve today while we've got the bike here?
We just want to come up with a simple little pre-cleaner that can come on the end of the intake snorkel. It won't restrict too much of the airflow. It'll just allow you to get a little bit longer service life out of the filter and just make it nice and easy to change. So you can have two or three packed in your backpack. You can change them on your trip rather than having to carry complete new filters.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. And that'll become what, an accessory part?
Yeah, it'll become an accessory part sold through us.
Yeah, cool. So here's a tip for all the American buyers. When you get your Tenere 700s later this year, we're hearing in Australia that they'll still be fitted with the original European version paper filter element. I think for guys that are like my mates in California, West Coast, all the big desert mile munchers, a wise investment is going to be tracking down one of the oil foam filters from our pals here at Unifilter in Australia and make that an early fitment to your bike before you head out into extreme dust conditions. A real wise investment, swapping it out for an oil foamed element.
Yeah, just cleaning the lip, make sure there's no dirt or dust left on there. The best thing to do is just grab a bit of grease, run along the sealing edge. Don't be afraid to put a fair bit on there. Best thing to do is use a high temperature bearing grease. No need to use any synthetic greases, which they can sort of migrate. Old school high temp bearing grease is the best by far. Just put it in, make sure it all seats down nicely. The other trick is to make sure that you don't tighten the screws up all the way up the first go. You want to get a nice even downward pressure rather than sort of all the pressure on one side. So just do them down to they're firm and then tighten them up. So once they're firm, then just give them a nip up.
And so another point to bear in mind too is with the snorkel for the airbox, guys like us with a dirt bike background, get the snorkel out, get rid of the ADR crap, we don't need that. Whoa, the word from Miles is be very careful with the snorkel on the 700. Leave the top section on the outside of the airbox entirely as standard as it is, facing forward.
Correct.
If we want to make a modification for a little more breathing, trim a fraction off the inside of the snorkel, mate. How much?
Yeah, about 15 mil, no more than that.
15 mil off the bottom?
Yep.
Why? If we go more,
If you
what's
go
the
too
possible?
more, you'll upset the balance of usually the harmonics inside the airboxes on anything that's injected. Yeah, you can run yourself into problems that way.
Right, so 12 to 15 mil off the bottom of that interior snorkel, just to help the airflow and the dust flow.
And it'll just spread the dust a little bit better throughout the filter.
Yeah, understood. Wise words. Miles has had feedback from owners, customers of the 700 looking for an additional layer of protection to the air filtration of the bike, and it's a pretty simple solution, as Miles has now discovered, by fitting what we call a pre-filter to the intake snorkel, as you can see he's just done here now. And I gather that the best thing, Miles, this is an existing part that you have.
Yeah, definitely, straight off the shelf.
Straight off the shelf. I don't think it's for a dirt bike, however. It's from something a little more exotic, is that right?
Yeah, it's off a Weber carburetors.
Okay, for car applications. But as you can see, it's a perfect fit there, in below the fuel tank and seat mount. And just for really dusty rides, long distance travel.
We don't recommend using it all the time. If you're riding on the road, there's no need for it. It's only when you hit the dirt where you can just easily slip them on. It's got a reusable cable tie that you can just undo with a little tab at the back, a spring inside for support. You just, when you're in the dust, just whack one on, zip it up, keep going. That way you can get a couple of these, change them while you're on ride. Saves you having to clean the main filter.
Yeah, and it goes on and off without removing the lid and the snorkel from the airbox.
Yep.
So a simple pop the seat off, bam, there you go. Another layer of filtration there with that little pre-filter.
Yeah, just lightly oil them. They don't need to be really heavily oiled, just a light coating of oil just to catch all the dust.
And again, that'll become a part available from Unifilter.
Yep.
Yep, simple as that.
Just a simple pod filter with a little support spring on the inside. So to easily to fit them, just compress the filter, just pull the snorkel back a little bit to get a pod in there, and then just feed the foam over the snorkel. Make sure the spring sort of seats up against the snorkel, that'll stop it from being sucked in. Pull the foam around the outside. And just grab your cable tie, feed it through the bottom, pull it around the top. Simply just zip it up, just tuck the edge in there, seat can go straight back on, doesn't touch the seat, all ready to roll.
So another interesting point about the airbox design on the 700, it's drawing its air in from the sides here, behind the cylinder, in under the fuel tank, into that airbox area there where the snorkel is right below the front fixing point for the seat. That's where it's drawing air into the filter.
I hope you've liked the first episode of All Things Tenere. Now before we go, Yamaha recommend Yamalube foam air filter oil to keep that pesky dust away from the internals of the mighty T700. Is that Gourley?
Yeah, Gourley. I think it's been sponsored by Unifilter since day one. Like, we'll ask Miles how many years it is. I mean, Gourley's he's nearly 100 now, so it's probably been about 60 years he's been sponsored by Unifilter. How long's Gourley been sponsored by Unifilter?
Since 1976 maybe?
Oh, I said the 79, I just said the days. Yeah, that's unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal. The key pops the back, pull it that way. Now we've got to get the little Allen key out.
Now this is the hardest thing to do, Chloe.
Oh, you need a good index finger like mine.
Right.
Or maybe Miles will have a better one.
Can we get a proper Allen key?
Yeah,
I did not get that out. I failed the Tenere test.
I had it out the first time. Must be that Australian fine particle dust has jammed it in there. Haven't even got to the air filter yet.
Mate, this happened to me the other day.
Peter Payne, paging Mr. Peter Payne. Darren Thompson, to the white room, please. How have they got the head of that in there?
Come on, mate, pull it out.
There it comes, there it comes. Oh, yeah, got it.
He's got it.
Right.
Well, that's not the...
What?
That's not the air filter.
No, you'll get a bit of a shock if you touch that.
This looks interesting.
Yeah. You've had your seat off?
Yes.
You've done this, haven't you?
Yes.
Yeah, come on. You're playing with us, mate. You're playing with us.
Mate, you love the red and white, don't you? Red, white and
I've
black.
got a bit of matches on this, mate. It's perfect on this. Look at that. My stickers. They're
Stickers,
8-year-old stickers. Match the cutting edge design of the block logo on the Tenere graphics. I mean, it is stylish, isn't it? It's square edge